This video is part 6 of the Coil vessel project. And since I last recorded, I added 2 coils and I really worked it with 2 tools, mainly 2 tools. My sponge, a little bit, and the tools I'm referring to is the metal rib that you all have, and then this mud tool that I mentioned before, this kidney rib. Really important little tool. Again, it does not come in your toolkit, but it's something for you to know about in case you want to purchase one of your own. So since I last left off, again, I said I added 2 more coils and then I worked the clay, and we've got the templates nearby. Bear with me today, it's quite windy. So of course I'm working outside, so hopefully everything will go well. I just want to show you where I'm at with the template. It's, as you can see, not perfect, but I can't stress enough that the templates are a guide, right? I often see students worrying a little too much perhaps about the template. Yes, it's great if you can follow it as exact as possible, but most importantly, you want to be most concerned with your vessel, right? Instead of worrying and nitpicking about every little perfect match, you want to take a step away from the template and also, look at the piece and how it's coming and rotate it and look at the different angles and make sure you're, of course, most happy with the piece itself. But again, the templates are there for you to use as a guide to really help you instead of they're for a guide. Before I add a couple more coils for you to see that process, I promised last video I would get out a measuring ruler and show you this piece is approximately now 4 inches tall. I can pick it up. It is, you can see hopefully you can see, looks like that. And it is really close to leather hard, right? So down here is almost leather hard, and up here is even almost leather hard. The rim, again, I did have plastic on the rim, right? I had this little piece under here and it was wrapped around the plastic, the rim as it was setting up. But I added 2 more coils and then I smoothed them out just like I showed you in the previous video. But then in that time, because this shape bulbs out so much, I really used my metal rib and again, this kidney tool to go inside and really push out this form, right? And now because our template, as you can see, the template I'm using here, I did alter the base. If you're wondering, that should be like a more cut. I thought that would look a little odd. So when I did, make the foot, I just wanted it to be instead of it jetting in at a very sharp angle, I altered that a bit, and please feel free to do that. Again, we're not focusing drastically on the template. It's more the final result that you get is most important. But you can see in the template that now, instead of flaring out, it's going to be collaring in. So the next 2 coils I'm going to add for you in this video, 2 more coils, and they're going to be placed a little bit more on the inside, and I'll show you that in just a minute. And before I started this video, I rolled out again. I have the coils like I showed you in the previous video. I have 4 coils rolled out so that I'm all ready to go, and that's something you might find useful and helpful process for you to get in the habit of doing, right? Come out, prep some coils the night before, a few hours before, and then come back to it and you'll all be ready. So got this coil, and like I said, I'm going to place it more on the inside. I'll come closer. Again, I often do my coils a little bit, quite a bit longer than that's needed. And that's not to say you can also do like a coil half that size, right? You saw in the previous video where I added a small section, you can do them half the size and just wrap them. As long as you wrap it around one time, usually works the best. Some people, if you're doing real different, unique forms, not necessarily what we'll be making, but you can build up a section, like say this piece, I wanted it to jet out really far. I could just build a series of this side here and then work the other side as long as I kept this wet. But most people, especially for vessels, because they're more circular in nature, the coils will just kind of be put around the entire rim instead of just a section and building off. But there's so many beautiful ways how you can work with the technique of coiling. It's really quite amazing. So again, I'm just putting that coil on there, more again on the inside, tearing off where it's needed. I kind of like to pat it down just to make sure it's stuck on there pretty well. Okay, so I'm going to come to show you, see how that's a little bit more on the inside, so I can, as I smooth out the inside and the outside, I can even take my fingers and push it and get it to go in that direction inward, right? Smoothing this out, the joined seam first, and again, kind of patting it down. Sometimes the reason I go around like this and pat it down is because sometimes you put the coil on top and there's a little bit of space between. And then when you go to smooth it, it can be a little bit more of a spacing with no clay. And that's why I find that if I pat it down just a little bit to get it to bite, to stick good, it works that much better. Little tip. So I will bring this closer, but for now, because it is getting bigger and it's much harder to hold and smooth out on the camera, I'm just going to do this and then I'll bring it closer for you to see. As previously mentioned, I do like to smooth out the inside first and then work the outside. So you can see all the way around. I smoothed that out, or blended it. You know, I didn't smooth it out yet. I just creased and sealed over the seam. I'm going to do that on the outside. Here's something good to know, like when I go to do this, I'll bring it closer as well, but I'm taking my right hand, my finger, when I'm blending that clay across that seam, I'm being very careful not to flare out and push from the inside. So you can see I'm almost guiding it in the direction that I want it to go to start. And again, keep in mind, I have a lot of clay experience, so I'm handling it quite easily and moving it around. I strongly recommend that you find a spot on your wearboard, on the newspaper, and just leave it. I want to mention here too, before I started this video, when I said I did work the 2 coils that I previously added that wasn't recorded, I really did focus on the bottom. I cleaned it up very well. I got, you know, I did pick it up why I know that I can, because from here on out it's going to be more and more tricky as it gets taller and taller. So go all the way around, just like I did in the inside. Hopefully you can see that from afar too. Okay, so that's that. And then here, I want to mention just a nice little spritz is good because I am working outside. It's been very windy. Clays tend to dry out really fast. So a little spritz here and there is always a good thing. Don't get too crazy with your spray bottle and spray it down because you don't want it to sag and crack or collapse, but because it's almost leather hard, it's fine. Here's where you want to use your tool. I'll go in, and this is where it becomes a little difficult, right? This tool is so big, it's hard to get in there because these are so small, and this is a very large curve for what I ideally want to work with. That's why this again comes in handy. So after I smooth it with my fingers, I'm then taking the tool to just go back and forth, as I previously mentioned in the videos before. It's just a back and forth to compress the clay and also to get that all nice and more uniform and clean in the inside. And you could, some people, I tend to do 1 coil at a time and build up. Some people do add 4 and then clean up all 4. You could do up to however many, right? There's no one way to do this. But find again what works best for you. What I do, like as you'll see in the next couple videos, once it gets more colored in, I will definitely be able to, in the way that I like to work, I'll add 3 coils and then I'll do blending all 3 at one time. Whereas here, because it's still more of the bulbous kind of form, and I really want to be particular with the shape, so each coil individually, then working it, and then you know, cleaning it up on the inside and outside, and then adding a next coil. will really allow you to get the form that you really are after. When you have a lot of coils to work with going in, and it gets that much more complicated to refine the piece exactly the way you want to. Just smoothing that inside. Some clay gets slaked off, it's fresh. So hopefully you have your clay nearby and you can just tuck it inside. You can kind of see how it's getting cleaner. I still have a lot of work to do, right? This does take time, but it is such a satisfying process, especially when you see a nice form appearing. And now you can see the top is getting a little wobbly. It's okay, just keep working it, but you know that it's all about timing, right? I know sometimes I get anxious in clay and I want to get so far in a certain time. That can be problematic because if you try to rush it, that's when usually mistakes are made. So have patience. Please have patience with your work. It's the beautiful thing about clay too. You can always keep it at a spot as long as you check it and keep checking it. Even if you don't get as far as you want, it's better to spray things down, cover it up, and then come back to it. I think that's a good rule in life. When you try to rush anything, it usually comes back to bite us. So now I'm going to work the outside. Just use this tool just to show you. I'll use the rounded part. And again, see how my left hand is supporting it in there? So as I'm pressing in with my right hand, there's always another hand supporting it from whatever direction. Same thing of when I was working in the inside, I always had this hand on the outside just to kind of give it that extra stability. And now, as you can see, I'm blending, but I'm taking the tool and more moving in this direction, motion, because I want it to collar in, right? So again, go back to the template and you see that you want it to collar in, right? We're after this really collared part here. So we don't want it to flare outward. We want it to go inward. So there's a good just swiping motion to think about whichever direction you are trying to achieve with your form. And outside, of course, is what we see, but the best way, I always stress this to my students, that the best way to get a form, I think people don't often realize that it's the inner, it's working the inside that really creates a lovely outside form. And that's true for when you're working on the wheel, any kind of hand building technique, but I think oftentimes, even with, especially with vessels, we forget the inside. And we'll talk about that too with glazing. There's nothing more, it's just wonderful when you peer inside of a ceramic vessel and the outside's so beautiful, and you look in the inside and there's just as much attention paid to the inside as the outside. And it goes with the making too. So now's the time to really not ignore the inside, right? Because the taking your time to focus on the inside, again, makes a really beautiful form on the outside. So you can see, right, I'm slowly scraping, and now you can kind of see it jetting in to create that form that I'm after. Yours may be completely the opposite. You might have chosen a form that really continues to jet out far, or not. Maybe it's really narrow and then it jets out at the top. Right, so this is the just constant technique of following the template, adding coils, one or a few or as many as you would like at a time, blending them, working the vessel, taking the time to step back and look from your piece from afar to see if one side is more lopsided than the other. Constantly spraying it down just a bit. I can feel this is getting a little dry. Just nice spritz. And then always remembering to cover the rim especially well, and then the whole piece, even if, break even if you want, want to just you have to break for a bit and go away for just an hour, keep in mind to cover the rim so that that does not dry out, because that's really crucial with blending and adding other coils. So I think I'm going to stop there. I know I said I was going to add 2 coils, but you get the idea. I'm going to keep working my vessel. You keep working yours. And I hope this is going well for you all. To be continued.